Hi, I'm Brittney Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it. Happy Monday, everyone. So happy to be here today. If you're just listening for your first time, you're listening to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. I'm your host, Brittney Ashley, and we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And I'm so excited to be with Cassandra today. So please sit down, take a break as we break norms and build dreams with Cassandra. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been on your podcast. I was just going to say for having me. We'll get into that today.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be interviewed by you this time.
Yes, we'll definitely kind of shed light too on your podcast. We chat. We have like a full hour of great conversation. But for everyone just meeting Cassandra today, Cassandra is a certified coach, healer, and intuitive business coach. Her mission is to help spiritual entrepreneurs to go deep within their journey to create an impactful and fulfilling life and business. She loves to help her clients transform holistically on all levels, the mental, physical, and spiritual, as that is what helps them create long-lasting results, which is absolutely true. She's an award-winning author of a book, Now What? Created the Clarity to Achieve Your Dreams, designed to help people with navigating life now what's moments. I'm like reading off the screen here. It was last minute changes, guys. Bear with me. You are welcome to join the Facebook group, Community Fulfilled Female Entrepreneurship, to listen to Going Deep series for deep discussions about spiritual entrepreneurship, which we'll definitely dig in deep today about as well. So thank you. Maybe you can just kind of share with our listeners just more about who Cassandra is, your journey, and we'll dig into it.
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm from Toronto, Canada, and from a young age, I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. I just didn't know what that meant. So I thought, okay, I'll be a teacher, or I'll be a psychologist. And halfway through my degree, I had this big now what moment. What am I going to do with my life? I feel like there's a higher purpose for me. Mm-hmm. So I ended up volunteering in Namibia, Africa, and that's when I fell in love with mentorship. I was on an after-school program with kids at a community center, and it just completely transformed my life. But when I returned, I felt so completely lost. I didn't know anything about the personal development industry at that time. So I went into insurance, the family business, because from a young age, there was this norm, there was this expectation that I would take it on. Mm-hmm. And as I was in it, I remember just daydreaming when I would be cold calling in this like little cubicle, thinking, I want to help people. I want to help to make an impact on the world. And then by accident, or maybe not so much an accident, I fell into the personal development industry. I created my first business when I was 20, making vision boards and doing workshops in schools and community centers with kids. And then I started to go my own personal development and spiritual journey. And now I've been in the industry for almost a decade, 5 years within this way of being an intuitive life and business coach. And it just fulfills me to my core. So that's the short story.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. As somebody who's also a coach, I love hearing other coaches' journeys and how they got to where they are. And I think that's kind of where a few of our interconnections and why we mesh so well together, because I feel like we've had a lot of, not a similar journey, but it's kind of like the purpose of always feeling like we want to do more and give back more. And how does that look? And maybe we can I like to educate others on the show. What is coaching? Because I feel like we kind of, we've mixed up coaching a little bit with consulting. And as someone who's also an ICF credential coach, ACC accredited for myself, I like to make sure that everyone knows that we're not giving advice by any means. It's really for you to interflect of who you are and kind of take down the noise because unfortunately sometimes we get so sucked into the noise, society, what they want us to be, societal norms, all the things above the sun. So it's just good to kind of remind others that coaching, everybody needs a coach, I like to say. Even coaches need coaches. We're just kind of doing like a little flat, like rebrand a little bit. And I'm like, everyone needs a coach.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So for people that aren't familiar with the industry, just think about like your school sports coach, right? They give you different tools that help you to improve specific skills. They cheer you on. They're your biggest cheerleaders along the side, right? Giving you all the high fives for all the wins. So they guide you with helping you achieve a goal. So I used to play soccer for many years when I was a kid. We wanted to win. We wanted to progress. We wanted to get the prize at the end, right? Just like coaches, you always set an intention when you start about a result that you want to have. And we guide you along the way, helping you with practical tools. And in my method, because I love to look at things from a holistic level, we focus on creating that long-lasting transformation on the mental, emotional, spiritual level. So that's what I like to incorporate, of using the practical tools that we'll do on all of our sessions and programs together, but then also the spiritual with meditation, with card readings, Reiki, whatever will serve the client most.
Amazing. And you and I just chatted about your Facebook group, Going Deep. Maybe let's kind of segue a little bit into there, because I feel like it's a kind of what we're already talking about. Maybe you can just let everybody know a bit more about what Going Deep is and what it means to you.
Yeah. So the Facebook group is called Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur. And there is a video series that I've been having in there for most of the year called Going Deep. So we talk about deep topics, deep discussions, and I share some deep stories about the spiritual entrepreneurship journey, about the topics that aren't often talked about, right? Because when we're on social media, we're scrolling and we see all the highlight reels of people, but I love to be able to go deeper within the industry and the topic so people can have transformation. Because I found in my journey this year, the more that you go deep within, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you have a 9-to-5, and you kind of figure out what it is that you want, you can create that transformation on the outside and break those norms and forge your own path on what it is that you want to create.
Yes, love that. And we are all worthy of whatever we want to pursue. Unfortunately, let's dig a little bit into like society norms, because you and I chatted a bit about that. And I feel like we get so, it's like, even when we're little, like it doesn't matter if you're from a different kind of family or anything like that. It's sometimes ingrained in family culture to what we kind of see online. And if we think about it, kids nowadays are getting access to phones, social media, all the things really early on. So that kind of really influence not just you as a person, but younger people as well on what they want to pursue, because they're all shedding light of this like perfect picture thing, and it ends up not really being I can't even talk right now, tongue twister, picture perfect. I'm trying to say maybe you have some kind of lights on what you're thinking there too.
Yeah, totally. So I actually wrote about this a lot in my book, Now What? Like everybody has these now what moments that you're busting outside of the norms, right? So we have this like checklist, like the ABCs of success, I called them in my book, that people go through in life. So you go to school, you get your degree, right? Then you get like this amazing high paying job, and you get a house, and you get married, you know, you have kids, and then you retire, and then you go after your dreams. That's what society has told us, right? But I think what's really cool about this generation now is we're kind of busting outside of the norms. About the Industrial Revolution is when this society standards were kind of set with this sequence of success. So it's really cool right now. I find like the millennial generation, the Gen Z generation, we're busting outside of that, being like, cool, you know what? I want to live my life now. I want to travel. I want to invest in myself. I don't want to burn out working crazy hours. So I think that that's cool. And I think even in my life, you know, there was this expectation of me taking the family business. So when you're talking about families, there's so many different layers to this. There's family, there's society, there's comparison to friends, right? And I feel like the biggest way that, you know, to combat it is to, again, go deep within and identify what is it that lights you up? What is your intuition trying to guide you to? What is that dream that you have when you're daydreaming, kind of like when I was in insurance, right? Daydreaming about doing something more. So it's giving yourself that permission to be able to bust outside of what you feel like you should do and go after the things that you are daydreaming about, that you are aspiring to have, in the life that you want to live. Like, we're the creators. And I feel like sometimes we can be handcuffed to what we feel like we have to do because society said so, or our parents said so.
100%. And we've had a few past guests on how they've changed their career so many times, sometimes even later in life, age 40 or 50. And like, I want to say it's kind of in a way like ageism of saying like we cannot change our career at age, I'm just going to say 50, but in reality, we definitely can. If it's not in alignment to where we want to go, why not challenge it and push it and find something else that's actually within what we really want to be?
Yeah. I think what I've understood about my journey too is like, in personal development, they talk about like your purpose. There's this one purpose in life that you're going to have, or like society says, let's get that one job that you're going to be in for like 30 years, 40 years, whatever. And then you retire, right? So like, I think what I've understood in my journey, and I help my clients that are in that transformational period, is like, there's going to be lots of rebirths in life. There's going to be a lot of deaths of the old version of self. Life is seasonal. Yes. Right? It's not this one size fits all forever. It's giving yourself permission to reinvent yourself. It was interesting, before we came on here today, I said, hey, can I send you an updated version of my bio? Because I've gone through so many rebirths in life, right? So it's giving yourself permission to voice that and to embody that new version of yourself and share that to the world authentically. And it can be hard though. Like, I know the amount of times I've reinvented myself just in my business alone, like the amount of resistance of holding on to like that version of yourself and that messaging and that marketing, right? So it's an interesting place to be, to go outside of the society standard and give yourself permission to just fully lean into that and embody it.
100%. Well, I'll just kind of talk a little bit too. Like, when I started the business, everyone's like, oh, you need a niche, you need a niche. Not to say niching is not a good thing. I'm a marketer. My background is in BBA, marketing communications, and I totally agree with niching to a certain point. But my brain was always like, I will not niche. So many people would get so mad at me when I was working with other like coach marketing people, because they're like, you just need to niche. Like, this one particular person, we didn't even hire me as a client because I said I wasn't going to niche. And I was like, yeah, I get why you want to do it. However, it's always worked for me not to niche. And the whole reason why, the whole premise of the business too, was to help moms work from home, help women work from home. And I don't want to segment into a different industry if that's what they don't want to do. I just know that I'm going to have long-term subcontractors working with me than against me. And so I think I just never niched because my inner gut was like, nope. And so like I had to push back. And even to this day, I'm still pushing back, but I feel like the full business as a whole is finally like coming a full circle. And I can see it finally being like, okay, I was right.
No, I love that. It's interesting you see that too, because with my first business that I had with a business partner at the time, the vision board business, it was called like Dreams Incorporated. So once me and my business partner evolved and went in our separate ways, I was at this precipice point of, should I continue with that brand or should I just create a personal brand? And that's something that's been really helpful for me in terms of marketing, is just always marketing myself and allowing myself to reinvent myself and allowing the messaging to change. For me, it's kind of been like every year there's been some sort of tweak for myself. So that's what's really helped me too. So if there's any aspiring entrepreneurs out there, like, maybe focus on creating a personal brand, and then that will give you that space and that freedom to reinvent yourself along the way.
100%. And I'm more like based like an agency. And so originally I started and then I was like, oh, I want to kind of break away, but I kept getting pushed back into the agency. I'm like, why? And I'm like, why am I pushing it so hard? And so I was like, you know what, let's just put it all underneath one umbrella and do my coaching here and all the things. And it all just makes sense now, but I'm still the face of the brand of the agency. It's just how I show up within the agency level. And so it was like a journey for myself of like, yes, let's do it this way, but that's not really where I'm going with that. So yes, let's go this way. And the thing is, I think we have to, like you're saying, give ourselves permission to go through those processes, because in general senses, is a brand is always evolving. It's never going to be that one size fits all. We're always going to be doing tweaks and moving backwards. And maybe there's services that you want to sell and you're like, oh, this was a horrible experience. Never mind. And it's okay.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what's so cool about this is like that's your authentic path and this is my authentic path. And I think it's just leaning into what feels authentic for you, going within and seeing what it is that you desire to carve your own path, right? Instead of being caught up of what you feel like you should do or in comparison. I think that that's what's great. And that's what my journey's been the past few years, is really kind of like quieting all the noise. Like I wasn't even invested in as many programs as I was in the past, and not having as much mentorship, just sticking to like one person so that I could go within myself and see what I want, instead of the need to like keep up with the Joneses and what's new and what's trendy, right?
Exactly. I find too, because there are a lot of coaches out there, a lot of consultants, a lot of great mentors out there. And sometimes you might end up working with somebody and they all have their strategies at the end of the day.
Yes.
And so when you come there and you're working with 5 different people, I'm just saying 5 as an example, you're going to get kind of confused, and the noise is, you're just not even going to know what direction to go. And so it's good to kind of take a step back, reflect. I would say like writing on a piece of paper, like what are your end goals, 5-10 years, what you hope to envision. Like the more you really envision what your true purpose is, all of this will kind of be more in alignment when you stand up in front of people, speak in front of them. Maybe you want to be a speaker, maybe you want to be doing podcasts, whichever route. It's just all going to make more sense, and that passion is just going to come through.
Yeah. No, I love that you say that, because I used to be very type A. I wanted like every little step planned out.
Yeah.
And what I've leaned into is like vision boards are great, because I create vision boards for like the long-term vision, and then allowing the path to unfold. Because I feel like we're so used to society telling us you have to have every step outlined. You need to have like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. And I've found once I've created some sort of structure and like, this is what lights me up, this is where I want to go, like putting a destination in the GPS just to see how far it is, right? And then like turning it off and just allowing life to unfold the way that it's meant to, and following my gut along the way has just made the whole experience much more freeing and like releasing of the pressure.
Yeah. Do you have tips for anyone who might want to do a vision board themselves?
Yeah. No, I love this. I've made them for almost a decade now, so I feel like I've learned what works and what doesn't. I love to think of like, what are like the 4 areas that are most important to you in your life? So whether it's your health, it's your wealth, it's your business, it's your personal development, it's adventure, whatever it may be. And then thinking of just a few goals for each and every one of those areas. And then finding a picture connected to it, finding some affirmations that might support it, some words, whatever that may be, and then putting it on your vision board. But I found that you can make the perfect vision board, but if you're not seeing it every day, you might as well throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
I think that is the key. You have to look at it. Like mine is right here beside me, and I see it every single day because when I'm sitting at my desk, right? So I think you can make the perfect vision board, but it always comes down to how you're using it. So as long as you're looking at it every day, you're gazing at the specific pictures, right? You're feeling lit up. You are like, I have a picture here off to the side of this beach home that I'm dreaming of having one day. And there's a couple chairs on it. And I picture myself sitting on the chairs and looking out at the beautiful ocean. So it's putting yourself in the vision board.
Yes. I love that.
I find like that is what makes things manifest. I've made some each and every year, and the things that are the ones that I check off are the things that I really go deep in visualizing myself in it and that I focus on most.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how you're not doing it like in the 5-10 year span either. It's kind of more, it looks like more, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of like the now, or like, yes, in the future, but there's no timeline. It's just I'm envisioning this is what I want within my life in time.
This is what lights me up. There might be a couple things like habits. Like that was a big thing that I valued this year, was cultivating habits that would support my dreams most. So that was one of my values this year. So those ones are more tied into the now versus the later. But for the other ones, I look over here, they're more visionary things.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I feel like even too, like, you know how everyone has like every year at New Year's, let's make out New Year's goals. And I've never, like, maybe when I was younger, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And it was never successful. And now as I've gotten older, I was like, you know what? I don't even care about those New Year's goals resolutions. For me, it's usually when it's my birthday. So, and I consider that like my, I guess, milestone, I guess. Like, what have I done in the last year before I turn? I never remember how old I turned. I just got asked. I was like, I don't know. I go with my husband's age. He's younger.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I've even been finding that I make a physical one. Like it used to be my background for my videos too. And I also have one on my desktop on my computer, which is kind of cool because if I'm looking on my computer and there's things that are outdated or I want to add, it's easier than like ripping things off and putting things back on too. Yeah. So I love having two. And I agree with you. There's something special about your birthdays. Like my birthday is June 28th. So right smack in the middle of the year. So it's a perfect time to review. Yeah.
I love that. Maybe we can talk a little bit more of your spiritual coaching. Like what makes you different than others?
Yeah. I don't know. My unique and authentic way of coaching, like it kind of bridges the gap between like the practical and like the spiritual. So when I started out, it was like goal setting coaching back in 2019 when I went one-on-one for myself. And it was funny because I was going on this big spiritual journey. I was learning Reiki, card readings, crystals, meditation, like doing all these things for myself. And I was very resistant to doing that in my business. And it was interesting. I was coaching and there was one of my card decks off to the side and it was just like screaming at me. And I asked my client, would you be open if I pull some cards for you? And she loved it. So that's kind of how I kind of sprinkled my toes into it. And then I started to realize the transformations that I was providing with people with using these spiritual tools were helping them immensely. Like I saw like the results that I was providing, not to say that I wasn't providing them in the beginning, but like the transformation was much more grand. And I realized there was something to be said about helping people transform at all levels, because as human beings, we are having a human experience in the physical, walking, doing our physical body stuff. And then we're also having the spiritual, right? So like when we interact with people, first we get this energetic connection. Then we have thoughts. Then we feel something in our emotional field, and then we feel it in the physical. So a kind of an easy way to kind of explain this is when you go to a friend is having a party and you walk in there and you feel like, ooh, like this is a good vibe. I want to stay here, tonight. I'm having a lot of fun. Versus when you walk in and you're like, ooh, something feels off. I think I want to leave.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's because you felt that on the energetic level, and then you had a thought about it. Then you felt an emotion, and then physically you have some sort of sensation, whether it's like excitement or you're feeling like contraction, right? So that kind of helps us depict how it is with anything in life. Right? We're connecting constantly with things energetically, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So as I help my clients in each one of the sessions, focusing on let's do some practical tools on the human level. Let's work on your mindset. Let's work on your emotional intelligence. And then, let's focus on the energetics with meditation, with card readings, with Reiki, whatever that may be. The transformation has been so fun to see.
I love that. And I feel like when you mix things in, it just, like you're saying, the transformation is crazy. And like I'm constantly, as myself, is always adding like more to what I can offer clients too. So yes, I'm an imposter syndrome coach, not just a business coach. And like I was looking at what other things can I do. So I'm hoping like in the new year to maybe register into like financial coaching. And it's just because we as entrepreneurs, we need to really know what the money piece of it. And sometimes we have struggles with it. And so I really want to learn from myself and others on how we can kind of make sure that when they're in their business, we can really get them to scale. So I love that you do all the things, and also like the tarot card readings. So I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. I love using like oracle cards or lesson cards, angel cards, because it's funny because you can explain tools with clients, but I find like the cards are like the cherry on top of the sundae because they visually see like an image to depict it. So for all the visual peeps, they absolutely love it.
I love that so much. And I find too, like I actually just had tarot card reading. Actually, it was a combination. So we went to go have tea. So it was just supposed to be a tea reading. And it's based in Nanaimo here on the island. So she ended up doing like tea leaf reading / number reading on my birthday / palm reading. What else? Card reading.
Wow.
All the things. And because I've been there one time prior, and just that experience as a whole, I thought was so much more impactful. I feel like she was also a medium. And so it was just kind of like, this is crazy.
Wow. Yeah, lots of energy. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah. Or pretty much before we go into the next segments, because we're already midway here for everybody listening. Welcome to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. We're live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM, and wonderful New Orleans. I don't know how the weather is over in Toronto, but today it's like kind of cold and rainy, but we need the rain. We have a really big fire here out near us that they can't control. So we need the rain. I'm not complaining. So was going to say it's nice and cozy in the room right now while I'm wearing a big sweater.
Yeah. Well, sending all the rain vibes to you. Here it's pretty hot.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, maybe we can chat a little bit more about because I know you have your Facebook group but you have your programs too. Do you kind of segment those a little bit differently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now for the summer, I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching in my Going Deep sessions. So kind of an extension from the video series in which people focus on wanting more impact, more fulfillment, more happiness, success, peace, whatever that is. Yes. And we bring that into the session, and we have beautiful like intensives or one-on-one session capacity in which we do some practical coaching tools, and then we do some energy healing and support on that field as well, just to help people go deep within. I think it's all about asking the right questions. It's finding that authentic path within for all my clients so that they can have what they want. Because the more that you build that for yourself, instead of letting the outside noise, society, family, whoever dictate what you're supposed to do in life, that's when your external world can transform and you can have all the results that you want. So that's what I have going on right now this summer.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then I'm just want to circle back to your book. Now what? Do you kind of bring that to within your programs, or maybe because like now what?
Yeah.
So is it kind of like when you're reading the book, is it giving you different steps within on how to navigate the now what moments?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this book came out 4 years ago in the height of the pandemic. It is a book in which there's lots of my personal stories about navigating now what moments. And now what moments are essentially those moments where you feel like there's something more for you and you're feeling the pull to step into that. And you're saying now what, because you're creating that change. So whether it's a quarter life crisis, a midlife crisis, you're feeling a change in career, you want to create a business and you don't know where to start, right? There's this through line of now what, of lacking clarity of what it's going to take that next step. So as much as there's personal stories in the book, there's also lots of exercises that you grab your pen. It's kind of like a workbook in a way in which that you can go through all of these different experiences to help you to create that transformation. So as long as you see it through and you go deep in the work, there's beautiful ways to create transformation there. So it's interesting because often a lot of clients, when they come for any type of coaching, there's always some sort of now what, especially for entrepreneurs, whether they're wanting to create a business from the start or they're feeling like a rebirth and there's some change that needs to happen. So it's interesting because the book came out so many years ago, but it's interesting to see how the content still is such a big part of what I do.
It's all interconnected. I love it. And I was just thinking too, like the now what could be, I know we talk about entrepreneurships, but I think it can really show for those in 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I was in a very toxic work environment and just felt like I was super stuck. And like when you're stuck in those kind of environments, like you kind of forget the silver lining of like why you've done what you've done. And you're just kind of like, I know for me anyways, I was just stuck in a leg and I couldn't get out and I didn't know what to do. And like I would go apply for all these other jobs, but I just felt like I wasn't good enough or I was not going to ever like, I just felt stuck on the bottom line.
Yeah.
And now really at the end of the day, it helped. I got pregnant with my daughter. And so I was able to get out of that kind of negative environment. But the thing is like, I don't want to say the what ifs, but how long would have stuck there? So having something like a book of like, now what can I do to change my life? Or where can I really be more authentic to me and work in those kind of environments that are healthy? I think is really important. And I think we as society need to start questioning those kind of environments. The more we come together, then maybe less of those kind of environments will be okayed in society.
Right.
I like to push the button on that one a little bit.
No, I really love that you bring this up because it's interesting. When I started writing this book, before it was released, that was kind of the situation I was in. So I was working in like a 9 to 5. I was in 3 courses and I was trying to build a business all at the same time, right? So talk about full life at the moment.
Yeah.
And I was in a similar situation with work. Like it wasn't aligned. There was a coworker, there was some issues going on there. And it's interesting. In the beginning of the book, there's this whole piece about gratitude. Like that's one of the first chapters in the book. Yeah. Talking about in the situations that you're resisting or you're having a negative relationship with, it's really important to look for the gratitude of it all. Look for the lesson of what you're meant to be learning. Because I firmly believe nothing happens to us, it happens for us. So that's a big part of the book, is really transforming that relationship with your job or whatever situation you're in, or a breakup or whatever it may be. And it's interesting because in my personal experience, when I was going through this with work, I did the exercise that I provided in the book, like looking for the gratitude, looking for the lesson. And once I did that, almost instantaneously, I got like an offer for a promotion within my current job. I had an opportunity come up for another job. They asked me if I wanted a raise. And this is like crazy, like unbelievable. Within a span of a week after doing the exercise, all these things started to come up. So it's interesting, like we might not have control of every situation that we're in life, but we also always have, control of our reaction. Every situation we have. So if you're able to shift that, again, going back to the energy, if you're going back and you're changing the energy around the situation, you're changing your thoughts about it, you're changing your emotions about it, then the physical is going to transform and change.
Yes.
So I think it's really important when you're in those situations and you're wanting to create a shift in it, before jumping the gun, it's always important to find the lesson and to find the silver lining and to be in the energy of gratitude.
Yes. And there could be certain things, like, because I was in a toxic work environment, like I said, but sometimes you're just so angry about a situation. And it's okay that it takes time to heal from that. But like for me, like after looking back into my lessons at this place, I was like, you know what? I wouldn't be able to even have I would have been able to build the business. But the thing is now I wear so many hats. I work with CRMs, I work with websites, I wouldn't have been able to do that without that job.
Right.
And so it's progressed my learning set in different levels that I didn't even know that I was even doing. I just felt like I was just sitting there, like dying of boredom sometimes.
Yeah.
But reading like endless code books.
Yeah. Well, what you resist persists, right? So if you're going to just resist the lessons, you're going to be in this like woe is me energy that's going to just bring more of it, versus finding gratitude, getting on that empowerment energy. Then your perspective around your current reality can shift to only pave the way for what's to come next.
Yes, I love that. And Terry just said, I love this energy, and gratitude is everything. Yes, 100%. And I feel that sometimes when we are sucked into society and we start comparing ourselves, I think that's kind of sometimes we forget about that. And we're like, oh, well, this person's like making 6 figures in their business. I'm just using this as an example because that right now is like a huge one-liner sometimes of sign me up. It's like the biggest peeve. But I'm making 6 figures in this business, or I've made over 100K in this course launch. And it's like, no, like I always I go back to this kind of notation of Rome was not built in a day. So there's a lot of work to build courses. There's a lot of work to build a business. There's a lot of work to get into maybe a different promotion. But if we kind of look at what we're gratitude in and our energy shifts to being more positive than negative, we're just naturally going to attract.
Yeah. And, social media is a big thing for that, especially for the personal development and coaching industry, for all industries, right? Really. As you scroll, you're seeing the highlight reels. And the thing is, you might not see all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You might be comparing somebody that's on page 20 of their book versus you're at page 1. So I think that's something really important too when it comes to comparison. And seeing the standards and seeing the norms that are being built on socials is giving yourself permission to acknowledge that you're at your stage of your journey and they're at their stage, right? So it's really important. That gives you that sense of liberation from that experience.
100%. And I'm all about community and building everyone to build each other up than competition. And the more of that kind of energy that's out there, there's enough business for all of us. But unfortunately, a lot of people get stuck a little bit in the competitive notion. And so how can we change that mindset a bit? Because I really, truly believe once we change that mindset, that energy of collaboration versus competition will help us all thrive within business and also within the work environment. So when I keep saying the tech place, but it was very toxic with also work, a different dynamic just with women. And I really thought it would be women supporting women. And it was the total opposite. And I was kind of horrified because I'm like, I just came out of university. I was so pumped to have this job. I was just like all these things. And I just was like, why are we not supporting each other? Why can't we make sure that this person be the next senior PM in the industry? Because really, in the end of the day, usually men just kind of run the tech industry.
Right.
Why can't we as women support each other and we run the industry? But unfortunately, it's that negative kind of competition comes in. And I really think that if we can all change that mindset and that extra energy, we can all support each other and we'll all be thriving.
I love that you're saying this collaboration energy. And I think essentially what has happened is when you're talking about the norms that are created for us, a lot of society's norms are created in scarcity.
Yes. Yeah.
There's this through line of there's not enoughness, right? You don't have enough money, so you got to hustle harder. Something what society says. You don't have enough stuff in your house. Come and go on Amazon Prime Day. Come for, Black Friday sales to buy more things and fill your life with it. Right? Yes. There's so many, we could be here all day explaining all the society standards that are based in scarcity. Come and have this money because you don't have it. But if you want to be successful, you got to come up into this tier.
Yes.
Right? So it's interesting because I can think about my journey and I'll share a little bit about it authentically. It's meant to help someone, I guess. When I started, it was all dreams and I can't wait to have this business. And I was doing everything. I had podcasts, the book was coming out. I had 3 different programs. There was so many hats that I was wearing, but it was I was enjoying it. And then there was a stage where in the pandemic, there was a lot of everybody and their mothers becoming a coach. And there was a lot of the marketing changed. I don't know if you realize this, where it's all of that you were saying about get to your 6-figure year, get to your 5-figure month.
Yes.
And I think with all the time I was spending on socials, because my business is so much on socials, it's an international business, I didn't realize how much all of that marketing was affecting me. So I was kind of getting in this mode of, okay, I need to do more. there was the impact through line, but I think because all the messaging was based in more money, more clients, I felt like I was a hunter for money and clients.
Yes.
And that kind of became a driver because of success. I wanted to be successful because success means more people.
Mm-hmm.
That became my airplane mode. And then it was interesting. There was a divine lull in my business. And I started to pull it back and realize, hey, like, what's your driver here? What's your motivator here? Why are you creating the business this way?
Yeah.
And it kind of really ignited this like going deep within experience that I've left there. Like, I don't know if any of the listeners, if you want to share in the comments, like if you resonate with that, whatever it is in life where you feel like you're in this caught up in the matrix of society standards and norms where scarcity becomes your airplane mode. You're doing more, you're wanting more because there's not enoughness. And I think the more that you kind of tune that out, like I unfollowed or muted so many people that I was seeing online and like turned off all the ads that I could. So the algorithm said, okay, no more pushing this out to her. That's when things really started to change. And like the aligned clients started to come. And I just fell in love with my business again. It wasn't a rat race anymore.
Yeah.
Because we left the 9-to-5 world to escape the matrix, right? And to escape the hustle and escape all of that. And it's interesting to see how a lot of people, you know, even with my podcast that I have with a friend of mine, how we talk a lot about that, about how finding your authentic path and creating your potential, right? By doing so.
And like my business really started from passion, like to build, like really to stop the gap in society of not giving those flexible jobs to moms. Or there's a lot of moms that just need some like they need that interconnection to than just taking care of their kiddos. And like that was like my passion of starting this business. And it still is my driving force. So passion over profit. However, sometimes, like we were just saying, you get lost in society of like when I first started, it's in one of the very first episodes, we had Nicole on and we talked about the red flag coaches on what to kind of watch out for, because both her and I signed up for the same coach that promised us to get 10K months. And even though we weren't, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that would be nice. And then you go into this program, which was expensive, especially like for me, we're both in Canada, but like half, like Nicole probably paid like half the cost where I paid like, 3 times more.
Right.
So it's an ongoing joke that we're the most expensive friends that we've ever met along the way of our business journey. But the thing is that when we kind of get sucked into this, we forget sometimes our true authentic self. And when I got sucked into this whole realm of thinking like, yes, like this is when I first started the business. I was like, yes, I got this. And then I remember like when I would sit with this coach, they're like, you want to charge $3,000 for that? I'm like, okay. Or it should be like 5K. I was like, okay. And then I started realizing like, there was no strategy here.
Right.
You didn't even help me with my pricing situation. You're just like, charge 5K. Because at the end of the day, if I did sign that client, I'd be halfway there to make 10K.
Right.
But there's no strategy on why I charge that amount. It's just this amount.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I get that. I've kind of had a similar experience. Enrolling with someone that I felt like was going to get me certain results. And then I backpedaled from it. It took me some time to recover, because when you're guaranteeing things, right? And I think that, there was a lot of frustration when it came to that, but I've really understood that like, because there's so much scarcity pumped into like society and even entrepreneurship, like I've kind of released the judgment of that. And I've kind of understood like the lesson that was in it for me. So yeah, it sucked on the human level. I had to invest so much to learn that lesson, but everything is always happening for us, right? So you found your friend, in that experience. And yeah, it's just interesting. I've really built a lot of compassion for these people. And I think it just comes down to alignment. If you align with people, A+, that's amazing. And then if you don't, then it's okay to like mute and unfollow.
Yes, 100%. I think we should just, for the listeners listening, we give you permission, because sometimes we feel like we don't have the permission, and we really have permission to take control back and make sure that we're in alignment, because we're worthy of whatever passion we want to pursue in 9-to-5 entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
I touch on both because we get a mix of listeners, but it really is whatever you want to pursue. On that, we should definitely talk about your podcast that I was on last week. Can you share more to the listeners about your podcast? Do I have the link here?
Yeah, Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's about creating a platform.
Yes.
For spiritual entrepreneurs that are deeply fulfilled in what they do, to share their zone of genius. So that's one podcast I have. And then I have a second one with a friend of mine called the Limitless Human Podcast, which is really about helping you honor the human experience while achieving your limitless potential. And it's funny, we met at a personal development seminar. It seems like a similar vibe with you and your friend Nicole. And we would have these deep conversations, and we're like, we should just record them one day. That's kind of how the podcast came to be. We do healings for each other and just have really like deep conversations. So yeah.
I love meeting. Like, I love going to networking, period, just because I just love meeting different businesses, their journey, and like how they got started, all of the things. And like, I just like Nicole and I just kind of were like magnets.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like we're in a few weeks of the coaching program, and then this coach couldn't answer my question. Nicole's like, well, let's just brainstorm together. How we started our general conversation. And it's just kind of like, I swear, if she lived here, we'd probably be hanging out almost every weekend.
Oh, I love that.
Friends from afar.
I love it.
But yeah, I was just on your podcast that was released, and we talked about imposter syndrome. Maybe we can shed light a little bit on just imposter syndrome. I know we've talked it through a little bit on the podcast, but we can just share a little bit to get people onto listening to your show. I don't have your link to your podcast, but I put on just anyone looking on the show right now. I have your Instagram account there, Cassandra, and then anyone listening, just go follow Cassandra on her Instagram account, and all of the podcasts are all posted there for anybody to join and listen and all of the fun stuff.
Yeah, I just dropped you a link too. Yeah, so imposter syndrome is something that affects everyone aside from entrepreneurship, but anyone. If you want to have a promotion that is super high, right? It's because that comparison that we deal with because of social media is a really, really, really big part of it. So it's helping you to overcome that and really focus in on what it is that you want to create instead of keeping you stuck, because that keeps people so stuck. Imposter syndrome. I know for me, that was a really big thing that I battled with, that it took me a few years to be able to bust through that and go out on my own in the industry offering services to people. So yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to it, since you are the imposter coach after all.
I was just going to chime in a little bit on, like, apparently a lot of coaches end up having a lot more imposter syndrome because our end goal is to see that transformation. And so when we have those conversations with clients, sometimes we feel like we didn't do a good enough job because maybe that person didn't say like that transformation right there in that conversation. And then you walk away and be like, oh, that was horrible. I'm never doing this again. I must be a horrible coach. And then that's where the imposter syndrome comes in. The thing is, coaching takes time, training as well, just like any kind of craft. And any coaches, to any coaches listening, is just to give yourself that grace of always leveraging what you can do and asking for feedback from your clients. But that's kind of what we've learned in our imposter syndrome coaching program too, with Dr. Valerie Young. They're like, how many coaches here are coaching right now or started and stopped? And I was like, oh, that was me.
I feel you.
It's just because you really want to see that transformation. And sometimes we kind of get stuck in our own head. And imposter syndrome too, like we talked a bit about perfectionism. And I'm a perfectionist. And if I don't get it right or mapped out properly, I start to have like anxiety, start second guessing myself. Imposter syndrome's like, oh, why are you doing this? And then I start like just self-sabotaging. And so I've learned throughout the years is how to quiet that noise. And so on your podcast, we kind of dig a little bit more deeper. So please go listen to the show there. I have it right. Oh yeah, I did put it there. I was like, where did I put it?
Yeah.
Multitask fast.
Yeah.
But I go a little bit more deeper into imposter syndrome with Cassandra on her podcast, and just some life strategies of kind of what I've overcome and so forth. So please go have a listen, because I think imposter syndrome, some people might say it's taboo because we're all talking about it right now, but it's good that we're talking about it. Is to learn how to quiet the noise and really make sure that we can all go in full to like where we would ever want to be in life than holding ourselves back.
Yeah, I have a short story
Yeah.
about my experience with it. So I went to a personal development seminar in California. This is like 2017, 18, around there. We had to do a like karate type of martial arts thing in unison. And there was like about 25, 30 people in there. Otherwise, like we just had to repeat until we got it done. And there was a girl beside me and she just wasn't getting it. And she was the reason why we had to stop. And to my peripheral vision, there was a friend of mine that had taken this for so many years, martial arts, and I knew that. And me, it was like my first day doing it. So I was kind of modeling my friend that I was in my peripheral, and I was getting a little bit better. And I remember tapping the girl on the shoulder saying, watch me. So she couldn't see my friend in my peripheral vision from where she was standing. So I was guiding her. I was a few steps ahead of her. And that was one of probably the most transformational takeaways from that experience. I realized like, hey, you just need to be a few steps ahead of someone to help them transform. And as we did that, within a couple times, it was complete. So if I didn't step into my light, if I didn't tap her on the shoulder, we could have been there all night. I think that made me realize, hey, like you don't need to be someone huge like Tony Robbins or the late Bob Proctor or whoever, Gabby Bernstein, to be able to help people. You just need to be a few steps ahead.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at time. Is there any last kind of takeaways that you want to say to the listeners?
You have the power to create your dreams. You have the power to have more impact, to have more fulfillment, more happiness, success. To be able to do that, it's really important to quiet out the noise about the norms, about what society says you should do, your family, what your friends are doing, what your next door neighbor's doing, right? Instead of looking over the fence all the times, it's important to quiet the noise, give yourself permission to go deep within. Because the more that you internally start to shift, the more that your external world can shift. So what may that look like? You may be asking. It's really important you might need a social media break. It might mean you need to make some boundaries with your parents. When they're asking you, why aren't you doing that? It could put enforcing a boundary with someone, saying, hey, like, this is what I'm focused on right now. I really appreciate your opinion, but like, it's not in alignment with my values. It could mean, muting your socials. It could mean, spending less time with your friends, having a little cocoon moment. But that's what's going to allow your external world to transform. That's going to allow you to have the space to really journal about what it is that you want, of venting to your notebook what it is that's holding you back, and then starting to brainstorm what are the steps that you want to take next. So if you want to look at it sequentially, if you're like, I like to see the path type of person, it's create that space to go within, really quiet the noise, grab your pen and paper, focus on what it is that you want, what it is that you're focusing on next, and then release the rest on a paper, burn it, rip it out, and then start to hypothesize, what are some steps I can do to put this into fruition? Write them down, number off the top 3, circle the first one, and start. I love to call it the circle and start method. So I think that helps you to break through the norms and create what you want for your life.
I love it so much. And thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for all our listeners. And I just saw that Terry made a note saying, thank you, ladies. So inspiring, both of you. Thank you. A big thank you to the UFO Paranormal Network, United Public Radio Network, and all our listeners. Next week, we have a surprise guest. Actually, I'm just waiting for a confirmation why I can't announce it. Just making sure she can come on. But it's always going to be a good show. So anybody listening, please come in next Monday, and you're always welcome to come back, Cassandra, next year. Maybe we should make a regroup next year. You and I will chat more. But with that, everyone, remember your journey is unique and your worth is unquestionable. Thank you, everyone.